are again at the channel of Realize to Actualize. I wanted to wish you a good day, whatever time it is, wherever you're watching. It is now. It's always now. Everything is now. And now I just wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind and something that keeps on coming up. It has to do with relationships between people, and how sometimes in relationships what is missing is honesty. What many times I find with people, that people have an agenda about what they want from another person. And if they get what they want from the other person, everything is fine and they're happy. But then when something happens that they don't like, something that upsets them, something they don't agree with, many times they do one of two things. Either they start arguing with that person and saying, how could you do this, and why could you do this, and you're wrong for doing this. And the reason for why that is actually they want to change the other person and to admit that what you just did was wrong, and how could you do that. Or they do another thing, the second thing, which is just they turn their back and they just leave. Instead of just, and that is really what I'm missing in relationships, is that people openly and honestly speak about, let me tell you what I think about what you just did. What you just did, I didn't like that, and that's how I felt because of what you did. Instead of just coming to their conclusion, either they argue, which is actually what makes it worse. Rarely out of an argument people come together again. Many times when people argue, it's just they create more bad feelings and negative feelings, and then the relationship will just end, or they just leave, which is the same thing basically, and it's the end of the relationship. But if people could just communicate with each other, actually communication, if you really think about that, it's about common unity. I communicate what's on my mind, and then you receive that, and then you share with me what you're thinking, and I receive that, and so it goes back and forth and back and forth. And through this we get to know each other, and we create a common unity. Even though we're different, but through this interaction, we get to know each other. Just out of a relationship. It's about two people relating to one another. Instead of just one person then saying something or doing something the other person doesn't like, and then boom, that's the end of it. One person leaves the relationship or just argues with that one person, and then it just gets into a mud wrestling. And that's just, very counterproductive. There's no learning, which again is the main point I'm trying to make. And I think it's so important, but it's also so rare in relationships where people actually make the effort to learn the other person, to get to know them. And that is especially when things are difficult, to understand, okay, when your feelings are hurt, I'm not taking it personal, and I'm not arguing with you, and I'm not just leaving you because I don't like what you're saying, but I care enough to understand where you're coming from and why you feel the way you do. Because through this I can get to know you better. And through this, the relationship can become stronger. Maybe that's something you can take into your relationships. When you see that there are problems with somebody, instead of taking this personal, or instead of arguing with the other person because you don't like what they're saying, or you don't like how they're saying it, and then you're getting your own feelings hurt, and then again you either argue with that person or you just leave because you don't want to have anything to do with that. Instead, you just stick around and you really listen, and you try to understand, and you try to learn what the other person is saying and where they're coming from, and you try to understand them. I guarantee you that this will result in the relationship becoming stronger. It is really those opportunities or those situations when things are difficult That is actually the real test of a relationship. It's not just when things are easy, when everybody's happy. I mean, that again, that's easy, that's simple. It's just like falling in love. Oh, it's so, we don't need to do anything about that, we just fall in love. It's actually very, very passive if you think about that. But to really actively deal with somebody when things are difficult, when things are uncomfortable, that is the opportunity where we can really rise to the occasion and show the other person that actually our love is real, that our commitment is real. And then we are being honest about sharing with the other person what we think, instead of just making up our own mind about, oh, I don't like what you just said, so I just leave the relationship. Or I don't like what you said, and I don't agree with what you said, so I just argue with you, because I want you to say that you're wrong. That's actually just asking for conflict. There is no winner. We never can win that war. And so I just would like to again make the point here that it's really, 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 really important to make the effort to understand another person and to hear where they're coming from, instead of getting our feelings hurt or our ego hurt, or because we don't agree with something or we don't like something the other person said. There's always an opportunity for us to understand. And this understanding will be able to help us to develop more positive, more genuine, more honest relationships. And that really, because that's what it's about, the ability to relate to one another and to allow the other person to share themselves with us. And through this, we learn. And that's all there is. Remember, life is learning.